Hola de nuevo. Hello again. Today we're going to do a quick presentation about telling time in Spanish. Our question phrase is ¿Qué hora es? Practice that. ¿Qué hora es? To answer this question, most of the time we're going to say son las and then our number. So whatever time it is, son las. For instance, as I'm making this video, I can say it is nearly 12 o'clock, so son las 12. Alright? For this example, we would say ¿Qué hora es? Son las 10. Okay? If we want to emphasize that it is 10 on the dot, we have an expression, en punto. Son las 10 en punto. ¿Qué hora es? Let's pretend it were just 9 o'clock. We would say son las 9. Now, obviously here we have to deal with the 9:30 part. And we have a few ways we can do that. Actually, two ways we can do that in Spanish. We can use our literal word for 30, which if you remember was 30. So we can say son las 9:30. But an even more common way of telling time in Spanish when we're telling a time that's on the half hour is to use the phrase y media. Son las 9:30. Literally, what you're saying is, it's 9 and a half. Okay? And this is going to be a little bit more common than saying y 30, but you can also do it that way. If we need to specify what time of day it is, Spanish does not use the abbreviations AM or PM. Instead, they will use the whole phrase de la mañana, if it's in the morning. So, son las 9:30 de la mañana. Or at night, PM, we would say son las 9:30 de la noche. Alright, ¿qué hora es? Son las 12. Son las 12 en punto. So it's 12. It's 12 on the dot. We could say son las 12. Let's ignore the sun for a second and pretend, let's say if it were in the morning, we would say de la mañana. If it were in the afternoon, we could say de la tarde. But just like in English, we have a special word, so noon, that corresponds to this specific time of day. And that word is el mediodía. So we have two options here. We can say son las 12, and then specify the time of day. So son las 12, I would say in the afternoon. So son las 12 de la tarde. Or we could say es el mediodía. Now, why in the world did we change from son las to SL? Well, it all has to do with the word mediodía. The word mediodía is a singular noun, literally meaning midday, alright? It's actually masculine, even though it looks like it would be feminine, días, el día. And so that's why our verb becomes singular. The reason why our verb is plural in all these other expressions is because we're referring to a plural number of hours. So, son las 12, but es el mediodía. Alright, very similar. ¿Qué hora es? We could say, son las 12 de la noche. We could also use a special word for midnight. So here, our expression would be, es la media noche. So we had, again, for 12 p.m., we had el mediodía. For 12 a.m., we have la medianoche. Alright, so what happens here? Well, remember I told you that if we have any plural number, so if it's 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, we're going to say son las. Son las 12, son las 9, son las 7. But if it's 1 o'clock, that's our one singular number, alright? So this one, we will say es la una. Es la una would be it's 1. It's 1 o'clock. Now, we have to give an account of the 20 minutes past 1 as well. So here we'll simply say es la 1:20. Alright, so any number that you want to include, we just put it after the E. Es la 1:20. If it had been 1:22, if you really wanted to specify that, you would say es la 1:22. 1:25, es la 1:25. And we can specify with de la mañana o de la tarde. Okay? ¿Qué hora es? All right, let's go with our base number first. Son las 7. All right, and here, as you might have guessed, we have two ways of doing the same thing. We could say son las 7:15. So literally 7 and 15. Son las 7:15. But just like the phrase y media, Spanish speakers tend to prefer to refer to the hour in terms of halves and quarters. So instead of 7:15, we might say it's a quarter past. In this case, we would say son las 7:15. Okay, literally, and a quarter. Las 7:15. Or las 7:15. Notice your spelling of cuarto, and hear the pronunciation cuarto versus the number 4, which is cuatro. So cuarto, cuatro. All right, now we have something new. We've got ¿qué hora es? Son las 3. Right, so we know it's 3. Now we haven't actually learned the number 45. All right, even if you had, it would probably be preferred by a Spanish speaker to go to the next hour and say it's 4:45. All right, so I'll give you the number for 45 if you want. It's 45. So you could say son las 3:45. But much more common would be to say it's 4 minus a quarter. All right, it's 4:45, in other words. Son las 4 menos cuarto. All right, so let's break that down. When we're talking about time past the hour, we will use the word y. So let's say it were 4:15, we would start with son las 4:15. But when we're taking away a quarter of an hour, so it's a quarter till, basically we lack a quarter of an hour until 4 o'clock, son las 4 menos cuarto. All right? In a similar way, we'll do this. We'll do the same thing here. So we have ¿qué hora es? Son las 5. All right. If you know the word for 50, you could say son las 5:50. However, it's a lot more common for you to go to the next number, which would be son las 6. So it's 6 minus 10. It's 10 till the hour of 6. In other words, so we have son las 6 menos 10. So basically the rule, which is not a hard and fast rule, but it tends to be that any time after the half hour, it's considered that you're closer to the next one. So it's going to be really common to hear people say, let's say it's 5:35. We could say it's 5:35, or we could say son las 6 menos 25. If it were 5:40, we might say son las 6 menos 20. If it were 5:45, we would say son las 6 menos cuarto. If it were 5:55, we would say son las 6 menos 5. All right, so hopefully you get that pattern. All right, so we have two questions. We've done ¿qué hora es? So we have two options. We'll use son las, if it's any number but 1, and then es la una. Also, we'll use es with phrases like es el mediodía or es la medianoche. And now we have another expression, which is a qué hora. So this is a little bit different. Instead of what time is it now, the question is at what time does something happen? So in other words, what time is the party? What time is class? What time does the exam open? That's when we're going to use the word a. So let's say that your class is at 8 o'clock. We would say a las 8. La clase es a las 8 de la mañana. Let's say that there's a party tomorrow at 7 p.m. We would say la fiesta es a las 7. Okay, so what time is it now? ¿Qué hora es? What time does something happen? ¿A qué hora es la fiesta? ¿A qué hora es la clase? Okay, so just to answer a few questions about your personal routine. Now, we don't know these verbs yet, but I'll give them to you. So if I ask you, ¿a qué hora te despiertas por la mañana. What time do you get up in the morning? Simple answer, you could say, say you get up at 7. What would you say to that? A las 7. Yeah? Let's say you sleep late, you sleep till 10. So, a las 10. Alright, what about a qué hora? Second picture to the right, looking at your screen. So, a qué hora te duermes por la noche? What time do you go to sleep at night? Let's say you go to sleep at midnight. We would say a la medianoche. Let's say you get in bed a little earlier. How about by 11? So, a las 11. And then lastly, we have a qué hora comes? And I guess we'll just say, what time do you eat lunch? So let's say you eat at noon. The phrase there would be a las 12 or al mediodía. Maybe you eat a little bit later at 1. So a la 1. Let's say you ate at 1:30. A la 1:30, etc. Alright, so just a quick review of what we just did. We did a qué hora, at what time? ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? We had our important expressions. Menos, when we're talking about lacking time to the next hour. So, menos 10 or menos cuarto. We had other expressions such as y cuarto, when we're talking about time past the hour. And then we had our expression en punto, when it's a time on the dot. Our AM and PM expressions, we have de la mañana, de la tarde, and de la noche. Okay, so gracias por escuchar. Thank you for listening and watching. And now would be a good time, now that you have gone through this presentation, to go ahead and give your homework a first attempt. So, buena suerte y hasta pronto.